Have you ever had one of those friends where you get so close to them that you don't really have to say anything to communicate to them? You can just kind of look at each other and know what you're thinking. A lot of times that can get you in trouble. Like in school, you got that friend, y'all just look at each other, you start cracking up, teacher gets mad at you, and it happens to best friends all the time. It also happens in marriages. When a couple have been married a long time, they can kind of communicate without even talking. It's kind of wild, but they just know what the other person thinks. They sometimes will do things for the other person where neither one says anything. They just know this is the way you like this. This is the way you like that. They just kind of know each other. Why is that? Why do we have those connections with people? Well, it's because we have deep connections with them. We know them really well. They know us really well. And it's something that we really need in our life. When relationships go deep, there's a power in it that a lot of people just aren't experiencing today. They don't have deep connections. And as men, we need deep connections in our relationships. A lot of people don't think about men needing deep connections. They say, well, men don't need that. It's actually the opposite. Men do need it. Men have the capability and they want those deep connections. One of the biggest problems men have connecting with women is the fact that they don't know how to form a deep connection. They don't know what a deep connection is, much less maintain it with a woman. So on today's show, we're going to talk about deep connections, how they help us grow in our lives, and how they make us better men. So let's jump in.
Welcome to the Confident Man Podcast, empowering men with the confidence they need to live their adventure. Now, here is your host, David Maxwell.
Hey guys, welcome to the Confident Man Podcast. I'm so glad you joined me today. I'm enjoying what we're doing right now. We are going through the month of March, and every day, Monday through Friday, we are putting out a special podcast just for you. It's kind of our way to have our own March Madness here at the Confident Man Podcast. What we did is we went back to our past episodes, which were the most popular, took those themes and created brand new content just for you guys. So enjoy March Man Month. We believe it's something that's going to really empower you in better ways to live your ultimate adventure. Now, today we're talking about deep connections. And as a society, we're more connected now than ever. We really are. But people are feeling more lonely, especially when it comes to the virtual world, especially when it comes to men. The loneliness doesn't mean there's something wrong with us. What it means is we were created to be connected to real people. I saw a book title the other day on my Kindle. It popped up as an advertisement for a book about how to have a conversation with a robot. And it's supposed to help you with ChatGPT. And I get it, but I started thinking, why? Alexa and Siri, sure, they're fun to talk to. They can do things for you without you having to pick up your phone because that's so hard. But, they're very convenient. I use them all the time. But I don't want to have a conversation and a relationship with them. AI is artificial intelligence. It's not real. To build a relationship with AI, which some people are doing today, is like the ultimate narcissistic behavior. Because it's a relationship that's completely self-focused. Because that is a computer. It's not a real person. And they're only there to make you feel better. So it's really our narcissism at a next level. And what we need is something that's a lot healthier. And that's real relationships. We need each other. And we were created to have those deep connections with other people. You may say, I don't need a deep connection. Well, then you're missing something important in your life. You're missing a big part of what it is to be a man. Because we were created to have those deep connections. Men were created for deep connections, to have it with their friends and to have it with women. So today we want to understand what deep connections are and how to build them. So we're going to talk about defining deep connections. We're going to talk about ingredients for deep connections. And then we're going to talk about working for deep connections. The first thing we want to do is define a deep connection. What is a deep connection? What kind of relationship with that? Well, it's a relationship that's not superficial. It's a relationship that's based on more than just work. If you work together, you have a relationship, but that's not a deep connection. If you have fun together, That's a relationship. It's not necessarily a deep connection. If somebody lives close to you and you do things together, that's a relationship, but it doesn't always lead to a deep connection. Those relationships aren't bad. I'm not putting them down. In fact, that's where a lot of our good, deep connections start. Someone at work, someone we have fun with doing a hobby, someone who lives next to us, a neighbor. All of those things can open up the door to a deep relationship, a deep connection, but that's not what they are. Men need deep connections in their life. They need deep connections with other men, which we just recently talked about on another show, because that's how we were created to be. Men were created to be in a good relationship with another man. We need that. If we ignore it, we're missing a big part of what makes us a man. Throughout history, men have worked together. They've done things together. And there's a power when men get connected together. It can be a good power. It can be a bad power. But it is a power, because when men are together, focused in the same direction, it's powerful. Many men today don't have that. And they don't even realize that something is missing. They don't even realize they're missing that deep connection. They're kind of going around trying to find answers, trying to figure things out. But what they really need is just good, deep connections with other men, because they've got that gnawing sense of loneliness and they're trying to fill it with everything else, but they need deep connections with men. Now, the big thing we want to talk about is deep connections with a woman, because that's what a lot of guys want. They want to have a good, strong relationship with a woman, with a female. And men were created to have a deep, strong relationship, a deep connection with a woman. It's just what they were created for. Now, where does that happen? Well, it's called marriage. That's what marriage is about. Marriage is the place where that deep connection happens. You say, well, why does it have to be marriage, David? What's up with that? Well, marriage is really the ultimate intimacy for two people. It's what it's designed for. It's a man and a woman building a life together and sharing everything together. They share with each other. They don't share with anyone else. That's a deep connection. When you're lifelong partners, you're going to get deep. You're going to get to know each other. And that's the way it was designed to be. That's why marriage is really good for men. We're actually going to talk about that soon. But marriage is where we were created to have a deep connection with a woman. It's supposed to be a strong, long-lasting connection. And that's why the hookup culture today is pretty dangerous, because it causes many, both men and women, to lose their ability to have a deep connection. They have a lot of relationships. They have a lot of hookups, but they don't have deep connections. And so they'll go from relationship to relationship on down the line and think, well, I've got to find the right person. When what's happening is they don't know how to have a deep connection. They don't know how to build intimacy. You see, that hookup culture focuses on pleasure, selfish gratification, instead of intimacy and service to each other. And it's in that intimacy and service to each other that you really form the deepest connection. When you go into a relationship thinking only of you, that's not going to build a good connection. And a lot of men do that because what they do is they go into relationships and maybe they've been hurt before, maybe they've been divorced before, and those are real pains. And they've not dealt with it, so they hold themselves back a little bit. So they're not going to have a deep connection with their next wife, their next partner, whoever, because they don't know how. They're going to hold back, and women do the same thing. And we've got to understand we were designed as men to have a deep connection with a woman, with one woman, and it's in the covenant of marriage. That's why we need to do that. That's why marriage is so important. It's not old-fashioned. It's actually smart. Because when you're married, you say, hey, I'm with you forever. You're going to form a deep connection. You're going to work together. And that's why men in marriage don't form deep connections to women outside of marriage. That just leads to trouble. You don't want to do that if you're a married man. You want to connect to your wife. You say, well, my wife and I are having issues. Well, you work through it. And as you work through it, a lot of times your relationship grows and goes even deeper. Now, if you're not married, you don't want to have deep connections with women yet. You just don't. It causes problems. If two people act married without being married, what happens is it robs them of their ability to be intimate when they do get married. It's going to hurt them. They get the pleasure side without the commitment side. They say, oh, well, we're committed. No, marriage is something different. You need to commit to each other. And that's why so many men have commitment issues today. So we wanted to talk about what a deep connection is, why we need it, because it's so important for us as men, especially in our relationship with women. The second thing we want to look at is the ingredients for deep connection. Now, I love to cook. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love making a great meal. I love getting new recipes and all that. But the key to a meal being good, you got to have a good recipe, but you also got to have good ingredients. If you're just going to make something up, that's fine, but you want to have good ingredients. You want to have good spices. You want to have good food. You don't want anything that's spoiled or bad. And so when you have the right ingredients, usually your food's going to turn out better. Now, deep connections are the same way. You want to have the right ingredients to have deep connection. Now, a lot of people think that having a deep connection really comes down to the other person. They got to be the right person for me to connect with. Actually, it's the opposite. To have a deep connection, it starts inside of you. You have to have the right ingredients. So if you want to have a deep connection with someone else, it starts with you kind of learning more about yourself, kind of going inside and having your own deep connection with you. I know it's a weird way to put it, but it's true. The ingredients for you to have a deep connection with someone else is what's going on inside of you. Some of the things you got to do, you got to be self-aware. Now, being self-aware is key to a man having strong, deep connections. Now, self-aware is not prideful or full of yourself. Self-aware is having a realistic awareness of yourself. Who am I? What is my purpose? What am I here for? How am I? What's my personality? Am I a type A, go at it? Am I more laid back? What am I like? And that's what you want to figure out. So you have to ask yourself that question. Who am I? What are my passions? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my preferences? You want to know these things about yourself. Some men can't say that. Some men, you ask, hey, what's your favorite? I don't know. What do you like to do? I don't know. Okay, that's a problem. Because if you don't know, how can you communicate to another person? You don't know what to tell them. Now, you may be laid back, but you need to know that about yourself. You need to know things about yourself. But if you never take the time to do that, you'll never be able to build a good relationship with someone else. And a lot of guys, what they do is they change who they are based on who they're in a relationship with. And when you do that, man, you're going to not really know yourself. You're going to be, well, I'm this person when I was dating this girl. I'm this person when I was married to this girl. And now I'm this person because I'm married to this girl. Well, which one is you? A lot of guys don't even know because they've never developed themselves, so they can't have that deep connection. Now, you also want to know your personality. What's your personality type? You say, how do I figure that out? Well, there's tons of tests out there. There's the Enneagram, there's the Myers-Briggs, 16 personalities. You can Google it and find plenty of them out there. But what you want to do is take one. There's plenty of free ones. There's plenty of paid ones. Find one that fits you. Learn about yourself. You say, oh, that's goofy stuff. Why would I want to do that? Because it helps you understand why you are the way you are, why you think the way you think. And it helps you empathize with people who think differently from you. If you're going to have a deep connection with someone, you've got to understand that they don't think the way you think. That doesn't make you right and them wrong. It's a lot of times because you're seeing things based on your personality. So you want to learn your personality. You'll be amazed at how much it helps you just learn about yourself so you can help have that connection with someone else. You also want to know your motivations. What's your motivation in life? What do you want to do? If your only motivation is to get home, sit on the couch, and watch Netflix, that's a problem. But if that's your real motivation, you need to recognize it and say, okay, maybe I need to change this. What's your worldview? How do you look at the world? Do you look at it through a lens of self? Do you look at it through a biblical view? Do you look at it through some kind of secular scientific view? How do you view things? Why are we here? What's the purpose of life? What's the purpose of everything? And you say, do I really have to know that? You don't have to, but it really helps you be able to form a deep connection with someone. It helps you learn yourself, and it helps you know what kind of people you want to be around. So you got to know, what's my mindset? Why am I here on earth? Yes, they're big questions, But men have always wrestled with big questions throughout history. Why should we stop now? Because when you can think big, then you can bring that kind of thought to the relationship that you want to have, and it's going to give you a deeper connection. You've also got to have a willingness to grow. As a man, you want to have that attitude of growth. What am I doing to grow? Because a deep connection with someone only comes as you grow together. When you get married, you say, okay, I'm with you for life. We're going to grow together. There's going to be changes. There's going to be things we work through. There's going to be good times. There's going to be bad times. We're going to work through them and we're going to get closer together. Why? Because we're growing. We're growing as individuals. We're growing as a couple. And you don't ever want to stop growing, because when you stop growing, your emotions stop and your relationships are going to suffer. So you want to have the attitude of growth. That's going to help you form those deep connections. And the last thing in that is you want to love yourself, but not worship yourself. We all know guys who worship themselves. They walk by a mirror and they've never seen a mirror they don't like. Why? Because they see themselves in the mirror. And there's guys who work hard to look good and they want to look good in front of everybody. That's fine. And you can love yourself. You just don't want to worship yourself. That's the problem. Because when you worship yourself, you think you're the center of the universe. But when you love yourself, you know who you are. You like who you are. And that's okay. In fact, the Bible says to love your neighbor as yourself. It assumes you're going to love yourself. And it's saying love other people the same way. But if we don't know how to love ourselves, we're going to find it hard to love others. If we're always beating ourselves up, putting ourselves down, we're going to find it hard to love others. We're going to expect them to do more than really what they should do, because we think, oh, it's all about me. You need to do this for me because I don't really love myself that much. And a lot of times when we put ourselves down, it's a way to kind of get sympathy. And nobody wants to be in a relationship that's based on sympathy. So you've got to learn how to love yourself, because you also, when you care for yourself and love yourself in a healthy way, you're able to empathize and care for others, which what's going to happen? You're going to get a deeper connection with someone because you know how to love them, because you know how to love yourself. So these are some of the strongest ingredients for us to have deep connections. And remember, the better the ingredients, the better the connection. The third thing we want to do is understand working for deep connections. Having a deep connection is not going to happen by itself. Like two people get married, they're not automatically going to have a deep connected relationship. They have to work at it. In fact, they always work at it. No matter how long they've been married, they need to keep working on having deep connections. Your friendships with people don't happen by accident. They happen as you work to form deep connections. One of the ways we do that is we look at others through clear lenses. Now, what do you mean clear lenses, Dave? Well, I'm talking about you want to look at other people the way they are. We've got to focus on them as individuals and not as a side character in our story. You see, when you look at others through the lens of self, you're looking at them going, what can they do for me? What can they bring to my life? And what you want to do is look at them with clear lenses and say, they're an individual. They're not here to support me. They're not a supporting actor or actress in my life. They're a real person. They have their own life. And that's how you want to look at people. They're individuals. They're not just there for you. A lot of guys look at relationship through the lens of self. They just do. What can she do for me? How can this guy help me advance my career? They're not really looking at them as individuals. And you can't connect deeply with someone when you see them as only there to support you. When their purpose is to make you look good, you're not going to have a deep connection with them. You want to see them as an individual. You want to support them as an individual. You can connect with them emotionally when you see them that way. You can connect with them in a deep way when you see them as an individual. When things go great in their life, you can rejoice with them. When things go terrible, you can be sad with them because it's not about you, it's about them. You're focusing on them. Which another thing you want to do to work at it is you got to work on your authenticity. And we just talked that in episode 132 when we talked about a man's need for friends. We talked about being authentic, and it really applies to every area of your life. If you're married to someone, you need to learn how to take the mask off. You need to learn how to communicate what you really think, what you really feel. The more authentic we are, the stronger connections we will have. If you want to build a connection with a woman, if you're married and you want to get closer, you need to be more authentic. If you're not married yet, you want to learn how to be authentic with a woman before you get married so she can know the real you, so you can know the real her. It's very important. You want to be real in front of people. You also want to be the other person's fan. You know, when you form a deep connection with someone, you're their fan. You believe in them. You've got a real relationship with them. And I'm talking about in a real way, not a famous person way, okay? We've all seen the rabid fans out there who basically worship people. That's unhealthy. You don't want to be that person. Like I saw a thing recently, there's a K-pop group I like called Twice, and they were accepting a Billboard award, and the fans like invaded the place. The whole top thing of the theater was them. So anytime the camera showed them or they mentioned the name Twice, everybody started screaming and hollering. Why? Because they were the fans. The people on stage didn't know what was going on. It was kind of cool to see. But you don't want to be that kind of person to someone else. You don't want to marry a woman and think, oh, she's so much above me. You know, I'm not worthy of her. You can't worship another person and form a deep connection with them. It's just not real. We do, though, want to be their fan. We want to see good things happen in their life. We want to get excited when they're blessed. We don't want to be jealous of them. Why? Because we're their fan. We support them. Even when they mess up, we're their fan. You know, not everybody's going to be perfect. And when people mess up, you can still be their fan. In fact, sometimes as a fan, you have to be honest with them. You have to say, hey, I want the best for you. Or you're better than this. I know you can do better. That's the kind of fandom you want to have for someone. And when you have that for a woman in marriage, for a guy in a friendship, you can really have a deep connection with them because you really genuinely want the best for them. It's not about you, it's about them. And that's what's going to help form that. And the last thing you want to do to work at a deep connection is understand the seesaw principle. If you've ever seen a seesaw, you know, the board just goes back and forth because both sides are pushing. And that's really how most relationships are, how they should be. There's give and take on both sides. All relationships should have a give and take side to it. And if one person is always giving and the other person's always taking, that's not good. That's not a healthy relationship. There's not going to be a deep connection there. Now, we shouldn't keep score. You know, I'm not saying in relationship, there are seasons where you may give more and they may take more, but it's all going to come back around. And you've got to understand that. You've got to understand that there's a time and a place to give and take in a relationship. And you should expect that in a relationship. Again, you don't want to have a scoreboard. That's not good. But you want to understand that if that person's always taking and you're always giving, well, that's an unhealthy relationship. And that should be dealt with because you won't form a deep connection that way. You've got to have give and take to form a really strong, deep connection. And that's what we want to do. Understand that deep connections don't happen by accident. They're not just going to pop up out of nowhere. They are going to happen because we build them. We do the work necessary to build that deep relationship. All right, guys, closing out the show today, we've got to understand that men were created to have deep connections because it's a big part of what makes us a man. You will be a better man when you have deep connections. When you learn how to have a deep connected relationship with a woman in marriage, you will be a better man. Deep connections give us that strength. We develop more fully as a man. We develop our giftings better when we're in deep connected relationships. We live a more fulfilling life. You're going to enjoy life a whole lot more when you have deep connected relationship. When you have good friends, when you're married to a good woman and you have a strong relationship with her, you're going to have better relationships with your children through it. You're going to be a better man. And we're going to impact society in a positive way. As men form good, strong, healthy relationships, they actually impact more lives because they're able to. They carry different gifts and abilities out of those deep connections and give them to other people in powerful ways. So I want to challenge you to move past superficial relationships. I challenge you to go deep. You'll have a better marriage, you'll have better friendships, and you'll be a better man.
You've been listening to the Confident Man Podcast. Click subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. You can connect with David on Facebook and Instagram at David Maxwell. Find resources to help you as a man at theconfidentman.me. That's theconfidentman.me.